Hi everybody and welcome back to a new video, this time in English. Well, I got some suggestions to start doing videos in English, so I tried to do my first, and well, if something is not going on very well, just don't kill me there. Greetings to my good friend Dave Keane because he was one of the promoters to push me to do some videos in English. Dave Keane is a good friend of mine. He's got a YouTube channel and he's a podcaster. He's got just he's doing just podcasting. His YouTube channel is DT Podcast, and I'm leaving you the link in the description if you're in case you're interested to listen to his podcast, or if you listen regularly podcasts and you like them, just take a look or take a listen to it or a look at it because it's in YouTube, so you can also take a look at it. To this interesting YouTube channel, DT Podcast, my good friend Dave Keane, greetings from here. Today we're gonna be a very interesting video, not very long, not very complicated, but interesting. Do you work with drum kits, just a drum set that is recorded with microphones, and you have to mix them and work with different miking of the drum set, like kick drum, overheads, rooms, etc., or just both of the snare drum? Or if you do some layering in your beat production or EDM production, and you layer your kicks and you layer different snares. So this video might be interesting for you because we're gonna see something very important before you start any processing at all. And this is a suggestion I can give you all in general before you start applying any channel strip or chain or whatever the fuck you watched in a different YouTube video, or somebody suggests you to do 5 best tips for professional vocals, for professional guitars and drums, etc., etc. Before you apply any of these things that you learned by heart watching a video, I suggest you just first analyze the signal you're working with and take a listen to it before you apply any processing, because at the end it might be possible that you ended over processing your project and sounding like crap and you don't know why. The main reason why a project ended over processed is because people just don't take a listen properly. First listen to it and then decide, do you have to compress? Don't you have to compress? Do you have to add this and that and equalize, etc., etc., etc.? So without further ado, let's go into the project and let's see what's going on today. This is Ruth Raya. Welcome to my channel. Well, we're now here in the computer and we have Cubase with the project. This is a small, tiny, easy production that I made just for this video. I didn't spend a lot of time. Just wanted to show some. I just wanted to use a small production to show what we need to see today. Well, the main reason of the video, or what we're gonna see today, is basically we have to check the phase relationship between sounds before we start processing. If we have a drum set on that, we're gonna see that later in a different project with a drum set and some mics record some drum tracks recorded with different mics. So we have to check the phase relationship between microphones that are recording the same signal. For example, the kick drum is recorded in close micing, and it's recorded with the room mic, and it's recorded with the overheads. So this signal is going to be recorded differently, and it's going to be it's going to hit the mics differently in time. It's going to be delayed when it hits the room mic or when it hits the overheads. That's going to cause that the phase is going to be perhaps different, or you have to correct the timing of this signal before you use all the mics, or before you make all the mics sound together in the mix, because it's going to modify the sound of, for example, the kick drum in this case. If we are layering kicks or we are layering snares, and that's what we're going to see here today, it's going to be also the same. We have to check if those different samples are relating properly in phase, because it might happen thus that we are losing some frequencies that are very important for this sound, in the result of summing these layers. If we use a snare or a kick drum itself, it's gonna sound good itself, but if we layer two together, perhaps we are missing frequencies that we could recover by making the sample happen some milliseconds before, or flipping the phase. So that's what we're going to see today here. We have a small project here, like I said, and I made this with Beatmaker from Splice. It's not the Beatmaker from Apple that I think many people use. This is small. It's an easy VST beatmaker or instrument from Splice. If you got any subscription with Splice to get your sounds or presets for synthesizers or for the beat making, you will receive like this VST instrument to make beats, right? Splice is not supporting this video at all, and I'm not going to make any advertisement from them. But I use Splice and I use Beatmaker, and I use also Groove Agent from Cubase, as you can see here. I just want to explain how I created this. I'm not going to explain how I created this, but I just wanted to say I created this with Beatmaker from Splice in fact, with two instances of the plugin. I have here Beatmaker 1, Beatmaker 2. Why? Because I use one of them for mono signals and I use one of them for stereo signals. If you're interested on Beatmaker from Splice, because it is free if you already got a subscription from Splice. If you are interested that I make like a master class of how to produce with Beatmaker, just let me know in the comments, because I can explain you how can you get from here, from this instance from Beatmaker, from the interface of the VST instrument into this. You see here all the channels, and how can you get to this, all the audio tracks, because they are audio files now. They are not MIDI anymore. They are not a VST instrument anymore. They are audio files. So if you're interested how to work with Beatmaker, just let me know in the comments and I will make a masterclass, because it will take a long time to explain how to work properly with this VST instrument and how I use it in conjunction with Groove Agent from Cubase. Mainly because with Beatmaker you cannot slice samples. If you got like you can add to the Beatmaker any sound you want, any texture or any kick, any snare, whatever you have. But you cannot slice and use these pads like I got here in Groove Agent. I mean, you have already this pad instance here, but you can add sounds here and you can determine when they start and when they finish, but you cannot slice one sample into different pads. That's very handy when you're producing. And that's what you can do with Groove Agent, for example. So I don't want to waste time with this anymore, and I'm going just to check what kind of signals we have here and how they relate to each other, and if we can improve how they sound. Let's start with the kick drums here, for example, and let's use a part in the project where all of them start together. We see here, yes, that's a good part. We got kick 1, kick 2, 3, 4, and sub kick. So when we are layering kicks, or when we are layering sounds, or when whatever it is, we have to check if they start in the same point from the grid. Because in the moment where, if you see here, the sub is not starting here, it's starting just some milliseconds later, and that might cause some loss of bass frequencies, because the phase is not going to be proper anymore. And perhaps if you flip the phase, you don't solve the problem. So what you have to do is to make, for example, this start some milliseconds earlier. We have many different ways to do that. I will explain that later. But that's the thing. That's the easy thing of the matter, you know. So let's check again how it sounds, this first kick drum, and the second one, and the third, and the fourth, and the subs. And later I will try to put them together and see how we can improve the sound, but only by checking the phase relationship between them without adding any process at all. So I will let them play now. Kick 1, 2, 3, 4, and sub, and let's see how they sound individually. Well, that sounds very, very little. I have to perhaps improve a little bit, or adding some gain here. Well, now it sounds like more even to the other samples, so that's okay. Let's check out, let's go here again, and let's check out how they relate to each other. Well, that I want to have here. And as we can see, this is the kick drum that's starting more accurate to the grid. So let's take as reference this one. And as we see, that's the delay between those samples, because the signal starts later, so it's delayed in the time. So as you can see, we have a range tool here where we see the difference between those samples. So if we go to the time bar and we choose, I'm sorry, it is in a Spanish language, but I didn't change my Cubase configuration for this video. If we choose seconds, now we got where my range is starting and where is ending. And if we can see here, there's 1 millisecond difference. It should appear here 1 millisecond, but perhaps it's less than 1 millisecond and it does not appear. But if we put the range just in, for an example, a little bit wider, it should appear now. Or not. Why not? Now, yes. Sorry. Now we have 1 millisecond here. That means that the difference is so small that you see now we make a little bit wider. We got 2 milliseconds. We got a little bit wider, 5 milliseconds. That's the amount of time between this range. So in this case, the difference between these samples is so small in time that it doesn't make any sense to make any changes or make this sample or place this sample 1 or 2 milliseconds earlier. We can do that in many different ways. I will show that later, but now it is not significant, so we're gonna do it now. So we see that changing the start point of the sample is not gonna make any difference. And second thing, when we already checked that the start point is proper, now we have to check if the phase is correct between them, or we can optimize it. As we can see, these samples are very, very different to each other, and as we can see, the phase relationship looks pretty good here at the beginning, but it slightly changes over the time. Well, now you see here, it looks like it's not good anymore, and then it's again good. So what we have to do is just to check how they sound together and flip the phase and see what happens. So, surprise. We changed it, we flipped the phase here in the second sample, and we got a much fuller sound and with much more bass in those samples together. So definitely here it's better if we flip the phase. So let's go to the next one. Let's mute the first and let's see what happens with this one. As we can see, we changed that to seconds again. The beginning of the sample is not very much more different as the other ones. So I think we cannot change many by making the sample or pulling the sample to the beginning just a little bit, but we need to check again what happens to the phase relationship between them. And here it looks also very uneven to each other, so it looks like we need to take a listen to it and see what happens when we flip the phase. In this case, it seems like we are getting some frequencies about 200 and 300 when we flip the phase, and we are missing some of the bass when we flip the phase. So in this case, let's check now with the number 2 what happens. But I think the phase is gonna be like that. It's much uglier when we flip the phase. So number 3 is gonna remain the same, and number 4, let's see what happens here. I don't know if we can win anything by pulling this sample forward. But the face looks pretty similar to the sample number 3. And then it changes again. That's the thing, is that the nature of the sounds is so different that it's not going to be even all the time, because they are completely different sounds. So let's check what happens when we use them together and flip the face. Now we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Whoa, here we can see that it's much more, they are all much more punchier when they flip the face. So I think it's gonna stay like that. And yes, I think both all of them, 1, 2, 3, 4 are already checked. And now let's check with the subs what happens. Perhaps if you check here, we have a different scenario, and if we see the sub here, in relationship with the other samples, is starting much later. Uh, 11 milliseconds we have here. Can you see? We could do this also measuring samples. For example, we can check here where the range starts, where the range ends. We have 514 samples, because now it's measuring samples. You can move samples by pressing Control. Let's say we don't have this here, right? And we have only this. We can move samples by pressing Control and left arrow. Can you see? Or we can also do following and say, okay, I will put my bar here and I will decide where my sample is going to start, for example here. And now I press Control L, and the sample went straight away to the bar. So now, for example, if we have space to move, because in this case it was not possible because the sample was at the beginning of the grid, so I couldn't move any forward. That's only a theoretical example. If we didn't have anything before, if we had just sliced samples and we could move it, we could just do it like this. We put now all aligned to the grid, and now we can check what happens with the face. So let's check this out. Like this. With the subs. Like this is sounding much better if we don't flip the face. But let's see what happens putting this sample to the original point where it was. And now let's see if it makes any difference pulling it back. Can you hear the difference? When we pull forward the sample, we are getting much more low end as when we put it in the original position. Listen to it. This is only a small example. So let's close this and let's check, for example, these guys here. Let's move them a little bit forward. Like, for example, here. But that's okay. And now we have like some headroom like that. I like. Yes, exactly. So here they look like it's very clear. This sample is starting a little bit later. And these are obviously not good in phase. So let's check this out. We have these two samples, for example. I don't know, I think it's better we flip the phase. And let's see what happens with this one here. That's a very clear example. Let's do it easy. Not moving frames, not moving anything. Let's do it just like this. We set this, wait, here. Now, a second. So it's better like that. So now let's do it like this. We have now the rule there, and we can do it like this and say, come back to daddy, bam. And now it's starting like that. Let's see what happens all together. And let's see if we flip the phase, if it's bringing something different. If we flip the phase, it's sounding not so good. So let's leave it like that, and let's see what happens if we turn it back to the original position. Can you hear the difference? We are missing frequencies when we put it back to the original position. Let's take a look now at the different project where we have some easy drums with not many mics, but you can check the same with, for example, with the kick drum and with the overheads and stuff like that. So I close now this one, and I will be back in a second with a different project. So we have now a completely different project. That's like it's a normal project with drums. We have a drum kit here, a drum set with different mics. This is recorded in a studio with microphones, and well, I already chopped some things and stuff like that. But what we're gonna see here It's also this phase relationship, but it's already done. So what I'm going to show you is a different way to approach this milliseconds or samples stuff, and it's with a function that you can find only in Cubase. And I use that always with drums, because if I move with the samples, I have to work with many different mics. You cannot just take a piece of kick drum and just move it, because we have all these microphones here, and they all of them have bleeding. It means the toms have bleeding from the kick drum and from the snare, so you have to be very careful by moving. What it can be dangerous if we just start to chop and move a piece of kick drum from this drum kit. So what I do here, and you will not see any optical difference by the audio files. They will remain in the same exact position, but they will not move at all. So you can use with Cubase this function here. I don't know if you knew about it, but we have this watch here or clock where you can delay or move forward one audio file without having to move here in the in the project window at all. You will see him in the same exact position, but it will be being reproduced earlier or later depending on what you did. So on this in milliseconds here. So if you put here 1.1.000, it's 1 millisecond. Let's see this drum kit here. Okay, it's a drum kit. Let's check these different tracks in this part here, and you will see that I already started to put different values. So the bass drum or kick drum is here, and then snare, you can see here. Snare is already with a -3 value. Snare bottom is with -5 milliseconds. That's 5 milliseconds earlier, because you have bleeding from the kick drum in this microphone from the snare, and this relationship and the same and the way around and the other way around, you have bleeding from the snare and the kick drum and the kick drum in the snare. So you have to align all of them so that you get the best performance possible, and it is much more noticeable with these mics here, with the room and with the overheads. If you see here, you have -4 milliseconds in the overheads, and even -17 milliseconds in one of the room microphones. And you will see what happens when we start to mess with this. And I'm sure I already flipped some phase relationship. For example, here. What is that? This is a room microphone with the phase already flipped. So the overheads are also already flipped. So I will not go yet I will not have a look yet every track, because otherwise it's gonna be too long, and you already could see it before. But I already did this here, and that's what I wanted to show. This way to work here, when you're working with the multi-track drums recorded, I got it in a folder here, because if you do some editing with time correction, make sure you will work in a folder, and you have activated the possibility to edit in group, because if you move something without moving the rest, you will mess up the drums, because you have to work with all of them in a folder together, and if you have to quantize some drums, you better do it in a folder and make them all together to be correlated. So let's see, for example, this room mic. I think it was noticeable when I changed the value of the room mic from 17, -17, to 0 to the original value, the kick drum was not sounding the same. And the same happened when I changed the value and the overheads to 0 again, from -4 to 0. We were getting different sound from the kick drum. So I think we already checked what happens when we don't check the phase relationship properly of our audio tracks. And we get a much better sound if we align everything together and we make happen all together and with the correct phase relationship between them. Well, I think that was everything for today. Thank you very much for watching. If this video brought you something positive or you learned something from it, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notifications button so that you can be notified when I make my next video. Share and support this channel because I will make this year much more material. That was everything for today. I think it's really clear how important it is to check phase relationship by when you're layering sounds or when you're working with multiple microphones recording the same exact signal. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.